How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Greetings, conversationalists across America. It's Eric Erickson here. I am so delighted to have you with me. What a day. What a day. What an impressive turn of events in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere across America. It's been a good time, hasn't it? I want to spend time now talking to Democrats. And you Republicans eavesdrop on the conversation, if you will, because you might learn a few things as well. First of all, I need you Democrats to know that you can buy coat hangers in bulk at Amazon.com and Red Fabric to make your hoods and capes for your handmaiden robes that you're going to have to hang on those coat hangers, because you're not going to want to get wrinkles in them, because you might get beaten if you do, and you're not going to have abortion anywhere in America anymore. That's all going away, so get ready. The amount of hysterics from Democrats over this stuff is ridiculous. You do understand that Donald Trump doesn't even have the votes to get an abortion ban passed. You were lied to, and many of you wanted to believe the lies. You were convinced of your own moral righteousness. The Bulwark gang, Sarah Longwell, Bill Kristol, and the like, last night were actually arguing, when it became clear Donald Trump was going to win, that the Democrats should have been more radical. You got to kill democracy to save democracy, apparently. Y'all are completely out of touch. I will say now again in a little more depth than I did at the first hour, what Democratic consultants, some of them, Democratic politicians, a lot of them, will say privately to me and others. There are too many mentally ill white women and gay men in charge of the Democratic Party. I don't mean that pejoratively. That is the reality. In the upper echelons of the donor class of the Democratic Party, you have a lot of very wealthy gay men and neurotic, mentally ill women who don't recognize they're mentally ill. They're suffering from depression and despair. They've got neuroses they intend to impose on everyone else to make themselves feel normal, and they dictate the editorial boards of newspapers. They dictate the policies of the female anchors who share the neuroses. They guide Democratic candidates. They fund Democratic campaigns. They are completely out of touch with other people, and they're rather insane. And frankly, there are a lot of white, progressive, wealthy women. They are awful, affluent, white, female urban liberals who have a whole lot of guilt about how they've raised their families and tried to maintain their careers. And instead of trying to recognize maybe they can't have their cake and eat it too, they try to impose policies on Americans who do not want them so that they have less shame about what they did. I think about that woman at Disney who was explaining how they've had to make Disney films woke because, she's got kids, or she's got the trans kid and this other stuff. And listen, I know this comes off as hateful, and I don't mean it to be, but you've got this high-income, professional, progressive woman who's decided everyone needs woke transgender values shoved down their throat so that her own child, who clearly, her whole family screwed up and they need to feel normalized. And instead of recognizing she might have some role to play, all of America must be indoctrinated into wokeism so that she does not have to ever bear witness to the fact that maybe she had some role in her family not being as normal as other families. And you get censored for saying that stuff. And I know I'm going to get hate mail for telling you the God's honest truth, but every single one of you knows it's true. You all know it's true. You can call it hateful, you can call it bigoted, whatever you want, but it is the truth. There are a bunch of professionals in this country, particularly of high-income progressive women, who have screwed up families and have decided every family must be screwed up, and if every family is screwed up, then no family is screwed up. And they've imposed their values on people. They say that Republicans want to impose their values, and that is projection. They want to impose values. You Democrats want the rest of us to have boys in our girls' locker rooms, and we're hateful bigots if we don't. You want your boys who couldn't get into college as a boy to get a girls' scholarship to go to college so that you can brag to all of your friends that your highly successful family has an athlete in the family with a scholarship. Never mind, you deprive one from a girl who busted her butt to get it. You high-end Democratic earners who are childless think the entire world needs to be realigned to your childless values. You are angry people. And you'll be furious with me for pointing this out, but it is true. You are bullies. You are scolds. The angry lesbians and progressive white women and high-income gay men within the Democratic Party do not relate to the middle class. And I'm sorry to be so blunt with you, but I'm telling you the truth, and you just don't like it. You don't relate to the middle class. You do not relate to black voters. You do not relate to Hispanic voters. And the best you've got is to yell at me, well, you don't relate to them either. You don't even get my point. You're trying to dictate ways to relate to people you hold in contempt. The most culturally conservative voters in the United States are Latino voters and black voters, and you have rubbed their nose in your transgender agenda, in your abortion agenda, in your progressive leftist cultural agenda, in your pornography in elementary schools with these books, and you say it's book burning and book censoring for Republicans to get the porn out of schools. You've lied to people, and then you've lectured the rest of us on disinformation and misinformation. You have no ability to hold yourself accountable. You have no ability. Listen to this exchange with Mika Brzezinski on MSNBC this morning.
I just got a text from a member of Congress saying, something else we need to look at is how people are turning to social media, podcasts, and other non-traditional sources for their news, and also news stations that aren't news. And I canvassed in all of the battlegrounds. I was shocked by the amount of misinformation voters were truly repeating back to me. Truly shocked. I do believe this is what caused the collapse of the Democrats nationwide. You cannot win when people believe lies.
You have been the people lying to Americans that boys can become girls. You have been lying to Americans that Donald Trump wants a nationwide abortion ban. You are the people who lied and said Project 2025 was Donald Trump's agenda. You people can't even see that you're liars. And so you're going to blame the misinformation, and you're going to blame the disinformation. You're going to blame the voters. It's remarkable. This is where you are. Here's Scott Jennings on CNN talking about this election.
This is a mandate. He's won the national popular vote for the first time for a Republican, for the first time since 2004. This is a big deal. This isn't backing into the office. This is a mandate to do what you said you were going to do. Get the economy working again for regular working class Americans. Fix immigration, try to get crime under control, try to reduce the chaos in the world. This is a mandate from the American people to do that. I think I'm interpreting the results tonight as the revenge of just the regular old working class American, the anonymous American who has been crushed, insulted, condescended to. They're not garbage. They're not Nazis. They're just regular people who get up and go to work every day and are trying to make a better life for their kids, and they feel like they have been told to just shut up.
Yes, yes. To the extent Democrats appreciate what Scott Jennings and I are telling you, you might be able to recover in time for the midterms. You're lecturing neurotic scolds. America last night said we would rather hang out with the crazy conspiracy theorists who think the government can steer hurricanes than hang out with you neurotic, mentally ill Democrats who want to impose your mental illness on the rest of us. You got rejected by everybody last night. There is hardly a sliver of ground in the United States that moved towards Kamala Harris. Donald Trump in inner cities across America, in Chicago, in Dallas, in Baltimore, in Pittsburgh, in Philadelphia, in Atlanta, in Los Angeles, in Miami, all of these major cities, Denver, black voters and Hispanic voters shifted his way. Listen to Margaret Brennan last night on CBS lecturing these people.
Any country I have ever covered anywhere in the world, people vote on the 3 feet in front of them and the kitchen table they sit down at every day. And the economic issues are just so fundamental, and the experience of that. And, you know, Nora, you said earlier, maybe we overfocused on grocery prices. I think, you know, Donald Trump campaigns saying he's going to lower the price of bacon. The president of the United States has nothing to do with the price of bacon.
Or eggs, for that matter.
Or eggs, or any of it. But it's promising.
Gas.
I get you're uncomfortable, even though the head of the Federal Reserve and those guys, you don't quite know what they do back in Washington, but they're making your house more expensive because they're hiking up more, you know. You don't get that. You don't get the national number where Joe Biden is telling you, look, inflation is moderating and coming down, but you understand your grocery cart or your gas tank. And that personal experience just seems to be what at least people are using to justify their vote for Donald Trump when they're citing the economy.
Oh, I can't say that word on radio. You idiot. You're one of the neurotic, white, progressive, wealthy women that I'm talking about. You can't even understand that people actually do get what's going on. They're too dumb to understand the Federal Reserve. Do you know, Margaret Brennan, that inflation is still rising? It's just not rising as high, you idiot. Inflation has not come down. Just the rate of inflation has come down, you arrogant, sneering, preening, progressive, neurotic woman who just doesn't understand how to relate to people in the heartland. You've lectured us right after Donald Trump was shot. You began lecturing Republicans on their tone. You lectured and corrected Donald Trump in that CBS debate when you said you weren't going to, and then you got upset when people pointed it out. Maybe go get a clue. Democrats, you have gotten arrogant and snide and condescending, and you've made it all about the acquisition of power, not actually improving people's lives. You've seen the world through this intersectional identity politics split, where you think that black and Hispanic people are oppressed and the white people are the oppressor. The black and Hispanic people of America last night voted en masse and said one thing: we're not black and Hispanic, we're Americans. Only the Democrats put skin color ahead of patriotism. And they lost last night because they put people into identity politics, intersectional bubbles, and decided that they could play everybody against the white guy as opposed to the black and Hispanic guy, who are working class, having more in common with that white guy than they do with you rich elites on the coast who don't have kids, or you've screwed up your kids. You've got the benefits of the Ivy League door and connections to get your kid into a school ahead of the black and the brown kid who actually has better academics. You've screwed it all up, and you've turned politics into your religion. And last night across America, God Almighty himself decided to smash your idols for everyone to see. And what was your response today? To wear black on television as if you were at a funeral. You're not going to learn your lessons, are you? Well, Mike DeWine is the governor of Ohio. He's now going to have to pick who does he want to be J.D. Vance's replacement in the United States Senate. Vance will have to resign his position to become vice president of the United States. He probably is going to stick around in the Senate until January 6th. of 2025 and be one of those senators who recognizes the vote. It's going to be very interesting to watch and see whether the Democrats try to pull something on January 6th. Will it not? Will it be insurrection-y? Just let me take this moment. I'll get back to phone calls here in a moment. But I, in all seriousness, I think this needs to be said. Both Republicans and Democrats across the country were convinced if their side lost, there would be riots last night. It was a polling question. Majority of Americans were fearful of riots. It didn't happen. We are a good country of good people, and I want you to understand this. You may not like the people on the other side, but they're not really your enemy, and I fear we're about to find out who the real enemies are around the world. Something wicked this way comes internationally, and you need to recognize that your fellow American is an American. And a lot of Democrats today who are just dripping with scorn for being rejected, you need to come to terms with why you lost and not blame bigotry and misogyny and racism and what have you, and just recognize you lost the confidence of a lot of Americans, including Black and Hispanic Americans, but they're not your enemy. They're just your political opponent. They disagreed with you this time. You've got the midterms. You'll recover in the midterms. I assure you Republicans will get their butt kicked in the midterms. Historically, that's what happens. But we're all Americans. Yesterday, people used ballots instead of bullets to change their government peacefully. And Democrats, you can say, well, look at Donald Trump in January 6, 2021. Well, show how to do it. Show how to do a peaceful transfer of power and do it. If I were Donald Trump, I would privately convey to Joe Biden that Donald Trump will pardon Hunter Biden and move on from it so that Biden is not tempted to degrade the office of the presidency by pardoning his own son. If I were Joe Biden, I would today, before Donald Trump gets there, shut down the Jack Smith investigations, dismiss them, let them go away, and move on. The country signaled it's ready to move forward, and it's moving forward with Donald Trump. I would respect that, whether you like it or not, and I would recognize the miracle of America. We just had a profound revolution at the ballot box. Not a shot was fired. God bless us all for that. Now, I want to tell you about Hillsdale College, and I hope you'll build a relationship with them where they love America. Hillsdale College is in Michigan, and they have an online ability to connect with Americans across every corner of the country. You can go to ericforhillsdale.com and find out more about Hillsdale College. You can get a free pocket constitution. You get the free Declaration of Independence. You can start getting their podcast network where you learn so much about America. Larry Arnn does a great job of educating Americans. The whole campus does. They've got great professors. I've got a lot of friends who graduated from Hillsdale College, and they love it. It's such a great program. They've got a great classical education program for public and private schools and homeschools across the country you can find out about. Just go to ericforhillsdale.com today. Start your relationship. Get Imprimis completely free. You don't have to pay a penny for this stuff. Go to ericforhillsdale.com today. Part of their education mission is to give as much to you as they can without you having to pay a penny. ericforhillsdale.com, E-R-I-C-K. Go check them out today. Hillsdale College. You'll love them. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. I've waited until this moment. I want to do two bits of housekeeping for you. First of all, I need to wish my father happy birthday. It is the 45th anniversary of his 40th birthday, and I love you very much. My dad, when I was a kid, worked offshore 7 days. He'd come home 7 days, and oftentimes he was exhausted when he came home. And we really we took my college road trip together. That's where we discovered Rush Limbaugh together, looking for Paul Harvey on the radio. We've been to the Cubs game. We sat right at the dugout. Been to a Braves game together. And he doesn't travel as much as he did, although he wants to travel more. I've been told I'm supposed to take him to California at some point. We should go to Vegas. Happy birthday, Dad. I love you. Also, on a sad note, I want to ask for your prayers. I haven't really given you an update. So we thought our dog Maggie, who's a golden doodle, had lymphoma, and we finally went to a specialist. Specialist said, no, actually, good news. It's an infection of the saliva glands and easily treatable. Well, 3 days ago, she started acting funny. And by yesterday, she couldn't use her back legs, and my wife took her to the vet, and they did an X-ray, and the saliva glands had swollen up so much they basically went from her jawbone to her shoulder, and they couldn't get a lot of fluid out of it. She couldn't eat, couldn't walk, struggling to breathe. Took her to a specialist this morning. Turns out she has cancer. So now we're trying to decide if it is there's a very treatable form of lymphoma, and she'll, just like my wife, take an oral chemo, or there's a very bad form of lymphoma. And if that's the case, we'll have to figure out what to do. And we're praying very hard that it is a very treatable cancer, and we would appreciate your prayers for that. It would, of course, be somewhat humorous in the grand scheme of theological things for my wife and her dog to both have to be on oral chemo the rest of their lives. So prayers appreciated on that front. Thank you very much. Now, I want to take your phone calls. The phone number is 877-973-7425. I shouldn't have all the fun today. A lot of you have questions as well. But one of the questions I've gotten emailed a lot, let me answer this. I mentioned it very briefly. But again, under the procedures of the United States Constitution and the laws of the state of Ohio, Senator J.D. Vance is going to have to resign as he becomes vice president. When he does resign, Governor Mike DeWine will have to appoint someone to fill out the rest of J.D. Vance's Senate term. J.D. Vance's Senate term runs through 2028. What'll happen is, under the laws of Ohio, someone will be appointed. That person will serve in the Senate until 2026 midterms, will stand for election for the voters to confirm the continuation of his tenure in office for the rest of J.D. Vance's term, and then will again in 2028 stand for a full term in the Senate. Yes, J.D. Vance is going to be the vice president now. He'll be the first bearded nationwide office holder since the 1800s, I believe, which is something. So, big day here. Now, let me go to phone calls here. Let me start with Nate. You're going to be up first on the Eric Erickson Show. Welcome.
Thanks, Eric. I'm one of those gay conservatives who voted as an American and not as an identity group. So
God bless you.
Happy for the win.
By the way, hang on, Nate. But hang on.
Sure,
let me tell you, because I just actually got this text message, and I'm looking at it as you call it. Completely coincidental that this happened. But a buddy of mine said, according to the exit poll, 20% of self-identified gay voters in America voted for Donald Trump.
That's amazing. It's probably actually higher than that. But,
yeah.
From my discussions with people, they just won't talk about it. But my question is on Colorado. I know they passed that law where they have to award their electors to the popular vote winner. So is that in effect? And if it is, how does that play out?
Oh, gosh. Oh, I'm so glad you asked this question, Nate, because this is one of those things. I literally wrote myself a Post-it note to talk about this today, and it fell off, and I would have forgotten had you not called in. So Minnesota, Tim Walz's state, has also passed that law. Minnesota has, and Colorado has, and California has, and several other progressive states have all passed those laws. Now, what they did, though, is they made it contingent on enough states doing it to actually have an effect. So they don't have to do it, but they should do it. I think Colorado put that caveat in as well. I need to go check on that. But what most of the states did is they wanted to do an interstate compact. And they wanted to say that our state will bind its electoral college to the popular vote if enough other states do it so that it actually would cause 270 electoral college votes to shift. Since not enough states have done that, it's not really enforceable, but we should bully them into doing it because that's what they want. I mean, they should have to do it. And literally the only reason they did it is because these Democrats convinced themselves Republicans would never again win the popular vote for the presidency, so they wanted to make this about the popular vote. Now, funny you should also say this, Nate, because When I got to my office this morning, I had a package, and it was about 5 pounds. And I opened the package, and it was a book with a compendium on the history of the Electoral College and why it needed to be changed to go with the national popular vote. It was this massively thick book. And yes, I think Democrats should be bound by what they want, and they should force the Electoral College in their states to conform to the national popular vote. And all these progressive states that voted for Kamala Harris should force their electors to go with Donald Trump. Back to the phones. Michael, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how you doing?
Great. How are you?
I'm fine. So sorry to hear about your dog. I was hoping for better news.
Thank you.
Anyway, I was asking about the media. They have obviously been so biased in protecting Joe Biden's mental ability and for Kamala Harris and doing pretty much everything they could be against Donald Trump. Is there any way for them to walk back or get any shred of credibility back, or did that limb that they climbed out on finally break off with all of them on it?
You know, I really, and I'm going to spend the next hour, I think, talking to the media. It takes a very long time to acquire trust. And the American media never really had to acquire the trust. We just had 3 networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC, and then PBS, then Fox. And they never had to compete. And you had the New York Times and the Associated Press that steered all the news coverage in America. It was unearned trust. It was just a monopoly. And as other parties have come into the mix over time, the media dealt with them very arrogantly. Look at the snide behavior towards Fox News, for example. And I genuinely do think they've lost all of their trust. I mean, in the latest Gallup polling, like Jeff Bezos pointed out in the Washington Post, the American media has lower trust numbers than the United States Congress. If they want to get their trust back, they need to do some things, and I want to talk about those in the next hour, so stick around with me on that. Philip, you're going to be up next. Philip, welcome. How are you?
Doing well, Eric. How you doing, man? Prayers go out for you and your family and your dog.
Philip, I got to ask you a question first. How much gray hair do you have?
0. I'm 29 years old on Saturday.
Hey, Philip, you hear that? This Philip's 29 years old and 0 gray hair. And I bet you're tall, too, aren't you, Philip? Sorry.
No,
I'm such a jerk to my employees. All right,
no,
go
sir.
ahead.
I'm only 5'9". My wife is actually 6 feet tall. So
hey, Philip, he's taller than you. I got to stop. He's going to quit.
Yes, sir. No, I just wanted to call in. I think I'm a libertarian, actually.
Oh, God, how did you get past my call screener? We don't allow your type on the show.
I don't know. You gotta deal with your employees, I guess.
Yeah, they both need to be fired now. All right, go ahead. I'll stop interrupting you.
No, it's all good. It's your show. I'm a libertarian from Atlanta. I wrote in for RFK. I think generally, between the 2 choices on the ballot, obviously, the 2 main choices on the ballot, I think it's probably better off that the Republicans took most of the seats, the House, the Senate, presidency, what have you. But my message to Republicans would be that, you guys need to govern smart. You don't need to be very aggressive. Just cut back on all of the bureaucracies, make very smart legislation, be smart on foreign policy, govern well, and maybe you'll keep winning elections down the line. If you go too hard, the pendulum is going to swing back the other way.
Yeah, okay. So, I'm a pretty rabid small government conservative. I want a government small enough it can be drowned in the bathtub, to quote Grover Norquist. But yeah, I think if Republicans come in and rush towards the right in the same way Democrats rush towards the left, yeah, the voters are okay with a gradual directional shift. They're not okay with a wild swing. And the GOP's got to be very, very careful about that. And my buddy Don Bacon in Nebraska, too, he was one of the most endangered Republicans. He has now won. The Republicans, by the way, it is official forecast. It's forecasted. It hasn't actually been official yet. But now even the New York Times and Decision Desk HQ are projecting the GOP is going to gain seats in the House of Representatives. Most of the seats that are going to be gained are moderate seats. They're not conservative. They're not far-right seats. The GOP is going to have an even keel here. If Donald Trump can get in and show Americans, look, I'm not going to do wild and crazy things, even as the media and the Democrats scream hysterically. Listen, we've learned the lesson now. Americans don't believe the media anymore. I need to point something out to you as well. This is actually kind of big. If you're not from Georgia and you're listening to me, you do not know the name Deborah Gonzalez, but you know Deborah Gonzalez. Deborah Gonzalez is one of the Soros-backed progressive prosecutors in the United States. And Deborah Gonzalez supported sanctuary city policies in Athens, Clarke County, Georgia, in the Western Judicial Circuit. There are 2 counties in Georgia that make up that circuit, Oconee County and Athens, Clarke County with the city of Athens where UGA is. Deborah Gonzalez got into office. I think like 17 assistant district attorneys who work for her quit. She is terribly incompetent. She wasn't nice to work for. She was a soft-on-crime progressive, and she set the conditions by which an illegal alien could take up residence in Athens, Clarke County, Georgia, and murder Laken Riley. An independent candidate collected enough signatures to run against Deborah Gonzalez, not as a Republican, but as an independent, and kicked her butt last night. Even the woke progressives of Athens, Clarke County, Georgia had enough and rejected Deborah Gonzalez last night. The conservatives in Oconee County rejected her. The liberals in Athens, Clarke County rejected her. Another soft-on-crime Soros prosecutor has gone down in flames. The Los Angeles County District Attorney, who was Soros-funded, went down in flames. And Proposition 36 in California won every single county in California last night. That's the proposition that reinforced penalties for shoplifting and other minor offenses, making them felonies again. The governor of the state campaigned against it. The Speaker of the House campaigned against it. Kamala Harris, despite 60-some% of the state saying they supported it in public opinion polling, Kamala Harris could not bring herself to come out for a tough-on-crime proposition, and it actually passed last night with 70.6% of the vote, and Kamala Harris couldn't even back something that 70% of Californians supported to be tougher on crime. Being tough on crime works, and Democrats need to remember that as well. Now, one of the organizations that deserves some credit for what happened yesterday is Americans for Prosperity. They're the largest leading grassroots group in the country, and they're on our side. And they knocked on millions of doors in states. Not millions of doors total, but they knocked on over 1 million doors in Georgia. They knocked on over 1 million doors in Pennsylvania. They knocked on over 1 million doors in Wisconsin. They knocked on over 1 million doors in Michigan. They knocked on over 1 million doors in Ohio for the Senate race. They knocked on millions and millions of doors getting people out to vote. Not only that, they educated people about common sense conservative reforms. They'd love to have you be a part of their movement. Americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. If you go sign up at Americansforprosperity.org/volunteer, you don't have to be a door knocker. You can just get all the information about a common sense conservative platform to move this country back to the right and gut Washington, D.C. If you go to Americansforprosperity.org/volunteer, they can train you to knock on doors. They can train you to go to your local government and advocate for things like school choice. Or they can just give you information so you're the most informed member in your circle of friends. Americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. Go sign up with them today. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. Coming up, I want to take your phone calls because I don't want to be the one having all the fun today, but I want to talk to the press as well. I need to give you some news. The Republicans are going to gain seats in the House of Representatives now. Not only that, the 6th congressional district in New York, which is 47% Asian, swung wildly towards Kamala Harris. Swung wildly towards Donald Trump. It was a 19-point swing. It just remarkable what has happened in some of these New York areas. Donald Trump did better than anybody going back to Ronald Reagan. Additionally, there is some data you're going to want to brace yourself for. Women aged 18 to 29 swung towards Donald Trump. In 2018, they voted 33% for the Democrats. In 2020, they voted 32% for the Democrats. In 2022, they voted 21% for the Democrats. In 2024, they voted 18% for the Democrats. But in 2018, men aged 18 to 29 voted 19% Democrat. In 2020, they voted Democrat by a 15% margin. 2022, it was 1%. 2024, they voted 14% for the GOP. 14% more likely young men were to vote Republican. To put it in perspective, there was a 29 percentage point swing to the right among young men from 2020 to 2024. A 29% swing. I have seen it. I have seen it among a lot of young men, and I'm telling you, I've seen the swing among young women, too, towards the right. It's not happening as pervasively. My daughter is one of those voters who voted for the first time, and she did not vote Democrat anywhere on the ballot. She said there was no way that Democrats were obsessed with abortion and craziness, and she wanted nothing to do with it. So she voted straight Republican, including for Donald Trump. The Democrats are losing kids on their craziness. You know who Democrats did slightly better with this time? Is older Americans. And you know why? Because older Americans were still offended by January 6th, but the swing was only by 2%. Pretty remarkable. It was offset by the swing among young women who swung 3% in the direction of Donald Trump. Democrats, you just can't fathom how Americans rejected you last night. When we come back, though, I want to take your phone calls, 877-973-7425. But we got to talk. I talked to the Republicans the first hour, Democrats second hour. It's now time to talk to the journalists of America. When we come back, you're not going to want to miss this, people. I got some thoughts. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. 877-973-7425, and please text Eric to 33777.